Good evening. Glad you all made it safe. I had the shortest distance to travel as I live across the street from this location and managed to fall on the ice on the way over here. So I hope everyone else had safer travels. I actually watched it happen. I was like, I'm going to slip on that ice. And I sure did. So welcome, and I'm glad and I'm honored that you all braved the cold weather this evening to come on out and spend some time being mindful about the way that we parent. Just to give you a little bit of background on myself, I've been a licensed marriage and family therapist and have been working with families, adolescents, teens, kids, couples for roughly about 25 years. I have been the owner and primary clinician, one of the primary clinicians at the Interview for the last 11 years. And at the Interview, it's basic general outpatient mental health. We work with couples, kids, families. Prior to my time there, I worked in the Catholic school system for about 7 years. Prior to that, I worked in youth ministry, working with adolescents. And prior to that, probably doesn't really matter to you all. It's a very important story to me, but we won't go back to my childhood. So, but needless to say, what I bring to the table today is over 15,000 hours of sitting with families, couples, individuals, kids, parents, over the last 25 years and listening to their wisdom. So it is their wisdom and their growth and their strength that is at your disposal today, and I hope it's helpful to you all as parents, because being intentional parents and working together is such an important piece. One other piece is that I am a parent myself. My children are 15. I have a 15-year-old boy, a 13-year-old, and a 9-year-old girl. So I bring that experience to the table as well to inform a little bit of the presentation and a few of the stories I'll get to tell tonight. As usual, I have enough slides to present from now until next Thursday. So I have a lot of information that I'm going to try and cover in the next roughly hour, and then get to some questions. There will be a little bit of exchange and discussion in the beginning, and then I'm going to move into a lot of material, and then we'll engage on it later. So thank you all. I do have a question up front. How many people are here as single parents? Okay. All right. And so you don't cohabitate with the parent of one of the children that you live with? Okay. So, all right. Great. So some of the pieces at the end will speak to specific information about working with co-parents in a situation where there is either been a divorce or there's not cohabitation, that people don't live under the same roof, and how do you create covenant and commitment with a parent that you're not in relationship with on a daily basis, yet you have a relationship through the children. So there will be some information specific to that. Hopefully everything else in the presentation will apply to both cohabitating and non-cohabitating parents. So, okay, so let's get going. So first thing we're going to do is look at dysfunction, just a little bit. And at the Interview, we came up with these rules for what is a dysfunctional family. And let me say, being a person who grew up in a family and have one of my own, all families are dysfunctional to a degree. It's a relative term. There's no such thing as a non-dysfunctional family, and if there was, which we all try to be, then our children would be ill-prepared for the dysfunctional world within which we live. So, to some degree, everyone is familiar with the rules behind me. But the degree to which we are familiar with those rules is the degree to which our family system and all of our relationships will likely dysfunction. So rule one, we don't talk about what goes on in this house. You all can read them. Following these rules is what makes people unhealthy and come to our office. When they sit and they're in our office because we need to talk to someone about what's going on in this house, in this house, and in this house. And because we can't talk about it with those that we live with in this house, and this house, we need to talk to you. So following Rule 1 rigidly makes people, we know, stuffing our stories, stuffing our emotions, stuffing things down. We eventually get sick and tired and we've got to get it out. So that's often what people are doing when they're sitting in front of us. Rule number 2, if anyone asks, we'll tell them everything is fine. Right? Many people are taught this rule because we don't want to air our dirty laundry. We don't want anyone to know. Of course, when our own children are asked how are things at home, we want them to say fine, right? We don't want them to go, well, Dad's kind of moody, and boy, Mom for about 3 days a month seems like about the same 3 days. She's just crazy. We want them to say, oh, they're fine. I have a great family. We want to be from a great family. But when things aren't fine and we say they are, that's a problem. 3, every day's a mystery. We don't know what will happen. Kids need routine, what to expect, to know the routine, the rhythm of life. And when they don't know it, it can be very disconcerting to them. Number 4, if anyone discovers the truth, we attack them and take the focus off of ourselves. So this is often common in highly dysfunctional families. Often that word dysfunctional family is attached to families where addiction is present, but it can really be any chronic situation where the problems aren't being addressed. Chronic depression, chronic anxiety, chronic addiction, chronic workaholism, chronic marital distress. We follow these rules. This is the rule where if anybody says elephant, talk about the elephant in the room, the rule is then we'll attack whoever said elephant, and the problem isn't the problem is who brought that up, who's talking about that. And then number 5, pain is to be avoided at all costs, and pain is everywhere. So to get healthy, and what we hope to encourage in your families with the children that you're parenting, is to follow these rules. In order to get healthy, we're going to break all of those rules. We want to break them to talk about what goes on in this house, in our heart, our head, our family, and in our homes. We're going to not say everything is fine. We're going to start with the truth. When we're asked, there we go, yeah, right over there. When we're asked, we're going to start with where we are. We're going to make life more predictable so that children, our brains like routines, right? We like to know what's going to happen. We don't like it when the unpredictable, such as the weather, happens and ice is thrown in the middle of the road. So we want to make things predictable by making things known. And when the truth is discovered or we start to feel bad, we're going to look at ourselves first. And number 5, pain is no longer to be avoided, and it will be addressed. So that's just a general overview and framework of how we view family systems. And specifically today, we're going to start moving into how we as parents approach parenting. So let me come back. So there are 3 basic parenting styles. So this is one model that is common language you will hear out there and is written. Sometimes the words are different. Instead of permissive and indulgent, it might have different words for that, and authoritarian and authoritative. And then I saw a model just yesterday as I was doing some more research that's added a 4th category, which is the abusive parent. So you could add that as another category. But for tonight's purposes, which abusive is really an extreme extension of authoritative in most cases. Neglectful parent would be a more, I'm sorry, I said that wrong, extreme representation of authoritarian. A neglectful parent would be an extreme representation of the permissive parent. And we'll come back to that on another graph shortly. But what I would like you to do is just turn to someone around you, whether it's your co-parent or just another person, and I'd like you to discuss that question, which is, what kind of parent are you when the kids are misbehaving or you are stressed out? It's very easy. I, as a parent, would like to say, well, Jim Klein's is authoritative, right? This is the way that I want to be. And when I'm not stressed and when the kids are doing what they're supposed to do, it's quite easy to be so. However, it's important to know under stress, when they are misbehaving, when we feel the pressure and the stress come up from within us, and we're dysregulated, if you will, because their behavior is not what we want it to be, or because my day isn't what I want it to be and I just want them to be really in line. I just can't handle them today when they're not going to do what I ask them to do, and I'm going to have to ask 3 times. And that was okay yesterday. I was having a good day yesterday. But today I can't ask them 3 times, because if I have to ask more than once, I'm just going to lose it. Right? On those days, which way do you go? Do you go towards permissive, or do you go towards authoritarian? All right. So just comments. I hate to cut you all off, but what did you all discuss out there?
Decided we were Hydra, the 3-headed monster, we do it all.
Yes. Yes, that's a great answer. There's no one way.
I think it's just a matter of how crazy the day is, that sometimes you jump out of this one into authoritative, or you might just blow right to perfect. You do whatever the hell you want. I'm not here.
Yeah, depending on the day.
House up, I'll be back.
Right, right. So some days, so having flexibility of style is something that you feel like the world around you, as well as the children you have, kind of dictate?
You got it.
Okay. All right. All right. Other thoughts, other conversations? Did anybody think of or refer back to the way they were parented as they were looking at those styles, either before the discussion or? Think about this, and one way to look at this is when you are that parent you swore you would never be, when you're having that moment of, oh my Lord, my mother just came out of my mouth, or my father just spoke from beyond the grave, or maybe from down the street, depending on where he lives. Those moments you're like, that wasn't even me. I didn't even consciously decide, it was like this, the day around me and these kids around me just generated this response that was more involuntary and certainly not intentional. And I certainly probably hope it wasn't on film. That might be where you take a look at the style. So we're not going to get into which is better or worse. Authoritative is more of a blend if you can stay in that place. But as we move forward, you're going to get the idea that what we want to do is be regulated ourselves and generate our parenting style not based upon what they're doing or what the day holds, but a stance that I want to come from as a parent. So here's another question. Discuss very quickly what kind of parent, oh wait a minute. Sorry, here we go. If you could pick any animal out of the animal kingdom, that would represent how you are a parent, your parenting style, what would it be? So just pick an animal. Just first thing off the top of your head with regard to you. Or the next question, what about how your co-parent is? So I'm going to go around the room on question 1. What animal would you say represents your style? Just pick any animal.
Bunny rabbit.
Bunny rabbit. How you are as a parent. Just pick the first animal that comes to mind.
Tiger.
Tiger, bunny rabbit. Lion.
Say lion.
Lion. Majestic lion from the Lion King, or
Lion lays back, lets the lioness.
the lion in the zoo.
Past that, then we.
Yeah, the lion.
Not we hit anybody, but you know.
Okay.
Kind of like it. Yeah.
Right.
I'm kind of sitting behind it until it happens.
Okay, so just kind of laying back and letting her. Okay. Other animals? What would you say? What comes to mind?
The only thing I could think of was a bear just being protective.
Okay. Bear, protective bear. Not scary bear, grizzly bear, but more, not,
Mess with me, you know,
right. Okay. Protective,
around my clan.
okay, around your clan. What animal?
As the kangaroo when she's little, but I don't know how they are as they get older.
A kangaroo's that, okay, remember that. You're going to, that's, we're heading there just momentarily.
Golden retriever.
Golden retriever, okay. All right, good.
Doberman.
Doberman, okay. All right, so we have a Doberman. So the Doberman Pinscher? Mm-hmm, okay. So we've got tigers and lions and bears and kangaroos and Dobermans in the room in terms of the way that we relate. and looking at the animal kingdom is one of the ways that we look at our practice at how do parents interact with their kids. So, let me go back here. What about, I'm just going to go through, since you all are co-parents, is that correct? So what would you say? Would you choose lion for him? That's a pretty good one. Okay. Would you make the same choice for her in terms of a protective bear, mama bear? Okay. All right. Others? Like, what would you?
Grizzly bear.
So the co-parent is the grizzly bear, and you were
A bunny rabbit.
bunny rabbit. Well, they're both stuffed animals at bedtime, but they're different ones, right? What about you? What about the co-parent that you work with?
No. Can you say clown? That's not it.
Okay. Well, you could say clownfish.
Yeah. Fun person.
The fun, like kind of maybe the dancing bear.
Yeah, that sounds better.
Okay. Okay. All right. So just using this imagery of how we visualize and start to interact with the other animal that we're dealing with. So if we look at the parenting in overall, the way that we look at it, both I as a parent and as well as I as a clinician, is that you have two axes. You have love, low and high, and then you have limits, low and high. These are the two things that we're doing. Do we teach them the limits of life? The yeses and nos, the do's and don'ts. Don't touch the hot stove. Yes, cross at the crosswalk. No, don't jaywalk. The limits, the rights and wrongs, the rules of life. And then we have love, nurturance. These are the two things that we're providing for our children through the parenting years. And when we look at the animal kingdom, if we're high both in love and in limits, we have the kangaroo, okay? Pouch parent, marsupial, you know. There's a lot of limits because we stay on the inside most of the time. Every once in a while we get out a little bit, but most of the time we're in on the inside. A lot of love and a lot of limits in there, right? Protection. And then we look at other parent styles and we go to sharks. Who knows how a shark parents?
They breed and walk away, don't they?
And no, that we'll get down here. The turtles, sharks. A bull shark is very much about limits. A bull shark will eat its young if it gets too far out of line. So a shark is about limits. It's low love and high limits. It's about the rules of life. It's about do this, don't do that. It's about safety. It's about,
Reality check.
Yes, reality check, and the hard and fast, more authoritarian in style than is the possum or kangaroo. Then we'll go over here very quickly. How does a dog or cat parent?
Scolds them unnecessary, like takes them out of the scruff of their neck and takes them back and deals with them when they need to.
When necessary, yes. Would you say more nurturing than a shark, perhaps?
And then also loving. Yeah.
Right, lots of love. Yeah. We see those few moments, but most of the time. And then we have the sea turtle, which they lay 10,000 eggs on the beach and then they're done with parenting, right?
Yep.
So if we look at a developmental model, where we really want to be is, and this is difficult to do, but 0 to 6, 6 to 12, 12 to 18, and 18 out.
Again. I didn't know where those numbers were until you got it. Okay.
Ages, if you have children, how many people have children in the ages of 0 to 6 in the room? Okay, there we go. 0 to 6. 6 to 12. Okay. 12 to 18. Okay. And then 18 plus. So developmentally, if you kind of follow their needs, a 0 to 6-year-old needs a lot of limits. They don't know to not touch the hot stove. They don't know, they need a lot of limits, and they need a lot of love, a lot of time, a lot of nurturing. 6 to 12, they need more limits. This is the age. This is the age where it's, do your homework, brush your teeth, setting in the routines and the rules of life and the structure and order of things. And we spend a lot of time from 6 to 12 telling them the rules of life. And at 6 to 12, they're also very receptive to most of it. Okay, they're sponges. Whatever we tell them and teach them or model for them is what they're really going to believe at this stage. And then we'll talk about why this happens, but 12 to 18 during adolescence, the brain, the mind goes under a huge overhaul, and they need a whole lot more love than they do limits. Have you ever noticed a 14-year-old, I think you all have a teenager, that when you start repeating the rules that you used to tell them when they were 10 and 8, and they would like sit in there and go, yes, okay, don't do this, do that, when they were 10 and 8. And then at 13, they're like the Wicked Witch of the West. They're like melting. Oh my God, you're repeating the rules. You're reading from the parent handbook. And Mary Beth gave us a parent handbook. I hate those parent handbooks. I don't need to, I know those stupid rules. And they don't really think they're stupid. They're just going to tell you they are. We'll get to why that happens in a little bit when we take a look at the adolescent transition in the mind and the brain. But in this stage, we need a lot more dog and cat. How many people have ever made a mistake and done a really dumb thing and gone home at the end of the day and been with their dog or cat, and you're really just flat, right? What does a dog or cat do during the times when you've screwed up? They just love you. They look at you, put their muzzle on you, and they go, oh, it sucks to be you. They don't come in like the bull shark and go, well, what did you do? Oh, that was a dumb thing to do. Let me tell you why, and let me get out the rules of the things I told you 2 years ago and yesterday as well, and tell you why you feel so bad and blame you, do they? That's not what a dog or cat does, and that is not what a teenager needs. And there's a reason, but we'll get into that a little bit later in the training. So just as a framework to give you some ideas and images of how do we parent, and then take a look at if you have, okay, we had nurturing mama bear, but then there's also scary grizzly bear, okay, right? We had lion, but it wasn't big roaring king of the jungle lion. It was more sea turtle lion. I just kind of laid back and let her do things. So it's more lower limits and lower love. I just kind of sit back and then let her. That's what I heard you say. Not that you don't do anything, but that's just the parenting role that's expected in the home. And so often what we find is we're counterbalancing the other parent. What did you say? The dancing bear. Okay, the dancing bear would probably be more dog and cat, right? The fun dad. Right? A lot of times what happens is the further, if this is balance in the middle, the further he goes out here with, higher love and lower limits, well then I've got to come back and counterbalance that, and I'll be more and more shark. And this is the complaint that a lot of parents have, is we're not talking about our styles and how to stay in balance. That instead of tug-of-warring, okay, the more you go in this direction, then the more she goes in that direction, high limits and high love, and then we're really just countering each other as opposed to trying to balance and come together in creating dialogue. So in co-parenting, the idea that we want to promote is that the more dialogue that goes on between the parents about how they see things, not firing, well, you need to change to be more like me. It's how can I change to be more, if I feel like I'm all the way out here in the outskirts, and it's because they're all the way up there. They're the authoritarian parent. And so I'm down in this permissive parent place. Rather than telling ourselves, I wouldn't be doing that if it weren't for the fact that they're up there. What would happen if I moved in this direction just a little bit and reduced the tension in the rope? Maybe they would come towards us. Maybe if we showed appreciation for they're all important. If you had to pick one, however, for all years of parenting, it would be possum and kangaroo. High love and high limits, if you had to pick one to stick in. Unfortunately, that a lot of times translates in our culture right now with all the parenting materials. We have too many pouch parents. We've heard the term helicopter parent, or not mother but smother. You know, that kind of image that we all have to overfunction for them for 18 years and wipe out all adversity from their life and get them straight from, you know, the better hospital to the better preschool to the better kindergarten to the better middle school to the better soccer team to the better college to the better wife and husband and better home and better car and better graveyard, because that's our job as a parent, and make sure that they get all of that. And that's kind of one of the problems with staying up there and not developing with them as they develop. So, questions on that before I move on? I just want to probably overdone that. Yes?
Is it almost inevitable that you're going to end up with that yin and yang?
Yes, to some degree. Even if both parents, let's say they came from, if they both came from parents like this, right? And so before they had kids, they were both like, yeah, this is the way we're going to do it. We're going to be more like, you know, authoritarian. And yeah, love's important, but not as important as the rules. And they're all on the same page. And then you throw kids in the mix, one of them's got to go here in comparison to the other. Now, the other one might be here, right? And the other parent's way out there. They might both still be in that quadrant, but in comparison, one is more permissive and one is more authoritarian than the other.
Those roles, because it seems to me, the more that I'm thinking about it, that those roles can flip-flop. It's like almost good cop, bad cop with us sometimes.
Yes.
It's like one person's had too much, the other one can come strong.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've got 4 of them, they're all grouped in 5 years, so it's kind of like
Mm-hmm.
6 years. It's kind of a, you know, the Indians are taking over all the time.
Yes,
So,
yes.
It seems like we flip-flop those roles. That's why I was wondering, does it always have to be that yin and yang? Because it seems like we kind of, one of us holds back until the other one runs out of steam sometimes, and then the other one jumps back in. Does that make sense, or is that?
It not only makes sense, it not only makes sense, but it is one of the assignments that when we work with couples that are having difficulty with child compliance, is that I send them home and their assignment is to go switch roles. And that the only rule is for the next week, if you're the shark, you cannot do anything of shark and you have to do all things dog and cat. And if you're the dog and cat, the next week, because when kids, that's where you want to break up, especially when they hit preteen and early adolescence, they're just manipulating to get their needs met, and not even consciously. 90% of that manipulation is subconscious, so they're just doing whatever works. And when you're in roles that are rigid and they know how to predict, well, dad's going to do this and mom's going to do that, then they'll just navigate that the easiest way to get their needs met. When you switch that up, they become more conscious of their behavior and the choices that they're making, and it kind of puts them on their heels a little bit instead of on their toes of, oh, well, if I do this and I'm going to take this issue to mom, or I'm going to take this issue to the shark and take this issue to the sea turtle, you know, how they're managing that. So a lot of times we'll assign and ask parents to switch roles and see what happens over the course of the next 2 weeks. And the feedback is quite interesting. When the kids are like, absolutely sure that I know what mom's going to do if I say this or do this, and they get the opposite reaction, it opens up communication. So MRIs and all sorts of studies on how the brain is wired and what goes on in the brain chemistry and wiring from 14 to 24, right? It's roughly, 12 to 24, 12-year period. Okay, what goes on? And what the truth is, it's a time of changing brain structure. It's under massive overhaul, from making decisions. How many people in the room have an adolescent? Okay, all right, good. We got a lot of them in here. The decision-making process is moving from the limbic system, which is a central brain system that is based on emotions and relationship, and is moving to higher thinking of rational thought in the cerebral cortex. Cerebral cortex is not developed in a 12-year-old. Cerebral cortex affects time, memory, logic, rational decision-making, impulse control, and motivation. All things that explain, oh, geez, that's why adolescents make poor decisions. They're impulsive, and, and empathy also. So they're not very empathetic. So these things are developing from 12 to 24. And therefore, they're impulsive and they're litmus testing the boundaries and exploring the unknown to form their own view of life in a move towards interdependence. They need us big time. And if we bail on them and just try and hold our breath and get through to when they're an adult, we're going to miss out on two things. One, the fact that they need us. And two, an amazing time if we have a way to view it. So in the book, and I wish I'd written it because it's great stuff. He says the essence of adolescence is emotional spark, social engagements, novelty, and creative explorations. Think about it. The things that we were motivated to do, we did fit in that category, didn't they? We don't have the love that moms and dads need in a marriage anymore. And give them some kind of language to help make our children's lives as predictable as possible, because children need to know what will happen to them, and the information is always their friend. As soon as we know where we're going to be living, what the routines are going to be early on, the sooner we can give them that information. And in fact, if we can get that information before we disclose to our children about a divorce, it's much better than well, our kids found out about the divorce that day that somebody got pissed and said, "That's it, kids, your mother's leaving." Or somebody stormed out of the house and they don't have any idea what that means. They need to know what it means. Last couple, to keep lines of communication wide open so that together we can do what is best in the best interest of our children, and keeping our communication lines open will help our children stay out of the middle. If you ever want to find out what a divorce is like, or especially one that's highly dysfunctional, ask a kid about the middle. Have you ever been in the middle? Ooh, they'll tell you about the middle. Any child, divorce or not, if you have conflicting parenting styles and you're not on board with each other, what's it like to be in the middle of mom and dad when we're at odds with each other because we're not parenting in the same direction? We're not having communication like we are tonight between the parents involved. They'll tell you about the middle. And last couple, to model our children that if any of the above are too difficult, we will seek help for ourselves to make sure our issues do not become a part of our children's lives. So, these are some co-parenting vows. They're on your handouts. You might consider, if you are in a situation where you're not cohabitating with your children's other parent, sit down and say, "Hey, I know this is crazy and I know I have a lot of work, but could we work towards getting this way? Could we agree to this stuff? Could we sign this document? And I promise I won't take it to my lawyer. But we'll just put our names on it and we'll commit to doing this because it seems to put them first." And when we were going through the divorce, it was natural that, we came first, and, our lives and our homes and our money and our jobs and all of that was first for a while. But could we put the kids first and set ourselves aside now that we've gotten through it? And you find there are a lot of really, really good co-parents in non-cohabitating situations once they get through all of the emotions and pain of the divorce. So these are just some thoughts for those who might be in that situation. And other than that, I guess we'll just open up for questions. It's about 8:03, and I appreciate your time. So questions or comments? Sure. Yes.
When you talked about taking a break and before handing out discipline,
Mm-hmm.
what's the lowest age you can do that with? The youngest? Like is 5 old enough?
Yes. Let me say, it depends on what it is. If you're talking about a 2-year-old who is going to touch the stove, right? This is a situation where immediate consequence and I know corporal punishment is all, but it's one of the few situations where with a 2-year-old, there's not anything that's really going to communicate, don't touch that, other than smack them on the back of the hand and have them associate. You can't, they're, walking in the street, touching hot flame, okay, corporal punishment, this is why we don't outlaw corporal punishment, period. Now, if you hit that kid so hard you break their knuckles or, you leave marks, that's a different story. But so, in general, 99% of the things we need to do as parents can be done without corporal punishment. But there are a few situations where an immediate response like that is, there needs to be an immediate response to the situation because of what it is. But if it's, they knocked their milk off the table, well, they're 2. That's what they do. And so that those situations. But I would say probably 5 or 6 is when you start delaying consequence, but I don't think you ever really need to do it immediately when you're mad. When they've upset you and come from that, that anger, fear, and pain place. So that's more the shift, isn't so much the timing of it, is can you shift out of that and get to a place of understanding and acceptance of what they're doing and not take that personally. Does that make sense? So, but the idea, it's just white knuckling it, when they're walking in late for curfew after we had that conversation and they're prepared for you to go, I can't believe you're late, so that they can tell you the story about how they saved children from a burning building on their way home, and all they know you're going to go there. You just stand there with your knuckles on the bottom side of the table and claw scratches into it because they're home now and you want to kill them. 5 seconds ago you were just terrified because you thought they were dead on the road, and then you go from I just want him to come home to I just want to kill him. You white knuckle it, and instead of go into it, you just pretend like, oh, it's 12. I'm going to bed. That catches their attention, because then they're like, wait a minute, I'm prepared for this whole making excuses thing. And they know better than to think that you didn't notice because you looked at your watch and then you walked off. You just didn't engage in that. So delay punishment as much as possible and praise as much as possible if you want to shift that ratio to influence of 5 positives for every 1 negative. Okay? You can have control going the other way, and you can be authoritarian and have control over their behavior, but will they self-regulate, or will they only regulate when they know you're watching? It's kind of the question. Did that answer what you're looking for? I'm going to take that back because I think it's a good question about what age, 5, 6. It's probably between 4, 5, 6, but I need to take a look at that in terms of their cognitive abilities. So, but I think that's probably ballpark where you can start delaying that consequence. Mm-hmm.
Suggestions for working with teenagers when you're trying to construct this attitude of influence and positive influence and whatnot, when the teenagers they want to close down. They don't want to engage. They don't want to tell you about what's going on. They don't want to interact. Asking open-ended questions doesn't really get the, Yes.
How was your day? Fine. Right? Get that? One of the things I didn't cover, because kind of had to hurry through a little bit, is that I mentioned it, but they read neutrals as negatives. So this is because in a primal sense, when you're 14, you're supposed to be preparing to have your own family and hunt and gather and go kill the saber-toothed tiger, right? So they're threatened by neutrals. So the low dopamine baseline, as well as the pruning process, sets them up, and this is explained in the book, but it sets them up to where the research, Dr. Siegel had a 15-year-old, and when they came up, when they were going through what the research was telling them, he was like, that's why when I walk in, and I walk into my 15-year-old and say, hey buddy, what's up? He goes, cut that out. Cut what out? That, stop it. They read neutrals as negatives. So open-ended questions they don't hear, how was your day? They hear, why didn't you do something more with it, you idiot? That's what they hear. They don't ask them what they heard. What did you hear me just say? You wanted to know why I didn't do my homework last night and why I flunked that test. And it's like, no, I said, how was your day, buddy? So if you're going to engage with them, you have to be positive. If they're going to read it as positive, you have to be overly positive with them, because they will read it as critical. They will hear a script, that is a threat. That you don't want to know how my day is. You want to know why I didn't study more last night. You don't want to know how my day was. You want me to give up and tell you what crappy thing happened in my day, and then you know what you're going to do? You're going to criticize me for why you're not going to be a dog or a cat. You're going to be a shark. So if you're going to have influence with them, you've got to give them real clear signal during adolescence that you are there to listen more, and that when they tell you something of their day that is wrong or bad or a mistake that doesn't fit with the rules of life that we've taught them since they were 6 to 12, remember? That we're not going to flip into the mode when they go, oh, it was terrible because I just did so bad on that math quiz. Well, how many times have we've been talking about that since last Sunday. Remember Sunday afternoon when I was telling you need to put that movie down and get to your homework? If we're going to do that to them, then why would they share their day with us? And we've done that, and we need to remember we did it at some point. All of us as parents have done it, where they tell us something bad about their day, and we go into, well, you should have done this and fix that, or do this, or why didn't you do that, when they didn't even ask us. What they really wanted is a dog or a cat to go, man, you flunked the quiz? Whew. Try that for a while. When they give you a little bit of a smidgen about something they did wrong or something bad that went into their day, just empathize. Empathize and listen and go, that's hard. And I know that you may be sitting here, still won't work with this one? Challenge, what do you mean? Tell me more.
Well, a 16-year-old, just an example, last night, she didn't make it on a volleyball team that she was going to make it on, and I went in, she'd gone into her room, closed up, under the covers, and I walked in and I said, well, we haven't really heard from them. We don't know 100% for sure. You're just hearing this from another person that they heard. You haven't heard anything, so there's still a possibility. And I get that you're disappointed. I get that you're upset. And, I was in your situation often. I didn't get to make the teams when I was a teenager, so I get where you're coming from. And she just stares at me. And so I was like, do you want me to just leave you alone? Yes. Hey. So, it's one of those, I try to go into the positive and empathize, and I don't do the, oh, you did, or you shoulda, coulda, woulda, but it's still, with this one, it does not.
Okay, so your style would be to be more towards dog and cat in those situations. You're the nurturing, the mother bear, right? Try something a little bit different because she knows that you're coming from that place.
Off in this bed and feeling sorry for myself. That's the opposite of where I am right now.
Change it up. Look at her and say, I know this is tough, but you know what I know about you is you're a survivor. So tomorrow you'll be pulling up those bootstraps because that's not what you normally do, and see what she does. Change it up if she's expecting you to come from that place. And the other part is be a little bit careful with, I think we as parents tend to say these words to teenagers. I know how you feel because I have been there. No, we haven't. Okay? Now, saying things like, oh, that sounds really difficult. Oh, God, I bet that's painful. Oh, that hurts. Saying things like that, matching their feelings matching, not experience matching. Well, I remember, because they don't like when we go, well, I know how you feel because when I was in high, and we have these treasure experiences of, I'm going to now tell you what I learned when I was a sophomore in high school, and they're like, oh, I don't want to hear about that. That was in the 1800s and it doesn't apply and you don't know. But if we say something very simple, like, oh, that sounds embarrassing, or, oh, I bet that hurt, and shut up and not try and say, and I know how it hurts and then get into my story, because now we've turned it from about them to about us, and we don't really like that. Because they want it to be all about them at that moment, because it is, right? Their whole world is the volleyball team. Now, by tomorrow morning, it's not, and they're going to get up and realize they're hungry, and they're going to eat, and they're going to have school and friends. But at the moment that the whole world is this, all we want to do is go, wow, if the whole world is that would be a cruddy world to be in, and then not tell stories. Try that maybe too. So. Yes.
I was just going to say, one of the things parents often will come to me, usually in middle school kiddos, because I'm the school counselor, is kind of that fine line between these are some non-negotiables, like that is not okay for my son or daughter to say this, do this, not do the homework. You know, and they want them to be successful, so they're like, I love them, that's why I'm saying this. And the kids are like, all you do is criticize me, why don't you try saying something I do right? So it's kind of that fine line, like, he refused, one I just had recently, like, he refuses to do his homework. She didn't use half does, but half something, everything, and she's like, I'm just frustrated, and I find myself, like, all I do is yell at him, but he's still not changing. And so, you know, I always say, well, if that's not working, we gotta do something different. The whole goal of any redirection is to change the behavior. But, so I suggested you figure out what's important to him and maybe do a contract, so then you take the emotion out. Now, all of that sounds great, but will it work? I don't know, so that may be helpful.
Yes, because it doesn't always work, and when those things don't work, because it is, you know, poor effort in school. That's one of the places that we said, you know, you want to go into that credible place, and you've got to be firm with boundaries, and you don't have to get angry and scream, but you got to be real clear with consequences and contracts and boundaries. And when they don't respond to that, seek professional help. I mean, because there might be something going on that puts them in the category that they need some extra support or a different way to view. I mean, because, you know, I don't know, well, as a counselor myself, and you know, sometimes it's like, well, maybe there's a disorder going on here. Maybe there's, you know, some oppositional defiance things that are going on that the kid needs help working with, because they just, when a rule comes up, even if it's don't walk into the fire, they just get mad and they want to go stick their face in the fire because they've got this, you know, there's a legitimate disorder. And so getting professional consultation when you're exhausting these things is often very helpful.